I could go without the Orioles threatening to get perfect gamed every couple of days. Look, I'm really enjoying the season. I want to make that abundantly clear. I just would prefer not having to feel that anxiety every fourth day. I don't... Maybe I'm asking for too much. Did I ask too much? More than a lot. You gave me lots of wins. Now that's all I've got. I just want one hit. All right, that was a terrible U2 impression. Remember when all of a sudden they were like, hey, we're going to put one out again, but this time Mary J. Blige is going to do it with us. And you were like, why? And then you heard it and you were like, oh, because it's better. Because it's much better. Right, because Mary J. Blige is that good. Yeah, Griffin doesn't remember that at all because he was 2 or whatever he was when that happened. I don't know. Hi, good morning, Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn Clark. He's Griffin. Lots to do on a Thursday edition of the program. We are going to have our first fantasy football discussion of the year. This is very awkward for me because, Gonzalez is my guy, and so this is very uncomfortable. I don't want to take anything away from Joe Serpico. Good guy, and happy to have him on board, and it's not his fault that Ken retired and wandered off into the sunset. Although, I feel like if we called Ken today and said, hey, why don't you do it, he'd just do it. I still don't believe him. So this is awkward for me. It's like when mom's dating a new guy, right? And you're like, I'm not going to call him dad. I want to make this very clear. I'm not calling Joe Serpico dad. I like Joe. He seems like a good fella. And he's our new PressBox fantasy football expert. And we're going to talk fantasy football today. We're going to get his thoughts on getting ready for drafts and guys whose names we should know. Rashad White. He's the guy Allgeier in Atlanta. I don't even know what his name is. But I think I'm supposed to know it. We're going to let him explain all that to us so that we're prepared. You shouldn't be doing your fantasy draft this week, of course. That should be something that you do Labor Day weekend. That is fantasy draft week. But we do want to be prepared. We do want to have those conversations. So Joe Serpico will join us today. We'll talk about that. Also coming up this morning, our buddy Jim Callis from MLB.com, MLBPipeline.com. They've got a new top 100 list. Unlike Baseball America that had Gunnar Henderson number 1, they have Gunnar Henderson numero dos. Number 2. Who does number 2 work for? Francisco Alvarez is their top prospect. Mets. Mets.
Yeah, Mets. Yes, Mets.
We got Grayson number 4. We'll talk about their list coming up in a bit. They also reordered their top 30 for the Orioles. You would imagine. Gunnar number 1, Grayson number 2, and then Jackson Holiday number 3 on the list. Colton Cowser, Jordan Westberg number 5. DL Hall, who slipped nearly out of the top 100 prospects. We'll talk about that with Jim Callis. And then at number 7 is another guest of ours this morning, Coby Mayo of the Bowie Baysox. We'll check in our weekly trip to Bowie to chat with a member of the Baysox coming up this morning at about 11:20. So that's all coming up. And then, of course, it is Thursday, and every other Thursday we bring you Weekend at Bookies. 11:40 a.m., Weekend at Bookies. We'll have our buddy Andrew Stecca check in. Our guy Brad Kronthal from Alloy Sports will join us. Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Of course, Simply the Bets every Tuesday at 11:40 as well. So that's what's up. That's what's on the docket. Orioles lose, and we're largely lifeless in the process. Now, if you want the good news, Austin Voth was excellent. As you know, if you watch the game, he was outstanding for 6 innings. There is question, given that he wasn't really pushing it necessarily pitch-wise, as to whether he should have gone back out there for a 7th. Considering he had never finished 6, you understand why maybe there was some reluctance to go back out for a 7th, but keeping in mind that apparently a few of the Orioles' top relievers were not available for yesterday's game, I can see why there is second-guessing. Of course, you can always see why there's second-guessing when it blows up in your face. As Alanis Morissette once said, I'm referencing U2 and Alanis Morissette, so Griffin is just going to go take a nap at some point. Everything blows up in your face. Somehow, for whatever reason, Brian... Do you know that?
I know Alanis Morissette.
Do you know what song that is?
That was...
Life is a funny way. Helping you out when you think everything's okay.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Everything's going right.
What's it called?
A traffic jam when you're already late. A no smoking sign. It's called Ironic. It was a huge hit.
Ironic.
I bring that up. By the way, that's the name of Brian Powell. For something weird happened on Twitter last night Rita was tweeting with somebody about Prince and Michael Jackson, and Brian Powell, I don't think, understood what she said at all and thought that she was disparaging Prince, which is literally the opposite of what she said, which I know because Rita and I, trust me, we've had lots of conversations about Prince. I promise you, if there's one topic, Rita and I, people have to remember, we're not just co-hosts, we're good friends. So Rita and I have a lot of conversations, and if you know me, there won't be many conversations until I get to my first Prince conversation, if we are actually friends. So Brian came to my Twitter and was like, you won't believe what Rita's saying. I'm like, what? What? And I went and looked, and I was like, no, I do. Did you see what she said? But somehow that turned into a conversation about vocalists and who my favorite vocalists were of all time. And I'm going to put that on the list. Saw Alanis Morissette last summer. I've never given her due diligence as a vocalist. I've always known that I liked her tunes. I certainly liked her first 2 records. I always knew that. But I don't think I gave her credit as being a pure vocalist. I said, we got into this conversation about people that I would listen to sing the phone book. Like, that to me is how you determine a great vocalist. It's not because you like their songs. It's because you like their voice so bad that they could sing anything and you would listen to them singing it. And Aretha Franklin is the greatest vocalist of all time. She could sing anything. She could sing our list of sponsors, and I would listen to her sing it. It's that much of an instrument.
That's a good idea. We should get that.
I would. Well, she's unfortunately no longer available for comment, Griffin. Nice call.
No, but
nice call.
I know.
Yeah. Do you?
Somebody.
But do you?
There's probably
do you though?
There's things we can like voice.
Oh, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
I'll work on it.
But Alanis Morissette should be on that list, Brian. Write her down. I don't know if you're chiseling it to stone or something like that, but Alanis Morissette should be. Griffin, of course, chisels our definitive power rankings into stone and then passes them down on Mount Sinai, which I appreciate because that's where they should be. It's that important. So if we're doing a vocalist list, I want Alanis Morissette on my vocalist list. She's a damn good one. Orioles lose was the point. I don't know how we got here, but we got here. It's what it is. We move on. I don't really... It's hard for me to criticize Brandon Hyde too much about not putting Austin Voth back out there for a 7th inning. And look, they scored 1 run. The likelihood that they were going to win the game scoring 1 run is slim. That was their problem is they didn't do anything offensively. Now, the good news is they won 2 out of 3 in Toronto, and that's very good news. When you're competing directly with a team for a playoff spot and you have the opportunity to go win a series on the road, that's big. It's incredibly good news the Orioles did that. The bad news is that they just didn't get much help anywhere else this week. And so because of it, not only are they falling a game and a half out of a playoff spot, the Twins actually jumped them. This is how difficult. This is why no matter how many times, Drew and I were joking about this yesterday, like, don't count them out, don't say anything, don't. No matter how much we do this, I keep coming back to, it's still unlikely. We can be mad about, and some of them are absurd, like when you look at the playoff chances for the Orioles and you see numbers, some have to be mistakes. But when you see them as sub 50%, I get it. I do. I get it. It's extraordinarily difficult because there are 6 teams. Oh, and by the way, don't look now. Boston's only 2.5 behind the Orioles with the series coming up this weekend. Boston suddenly has gotten hot a little bit. This is going to be extraordinarily difficult. Now, on a day where they only scored 1 run, and on a day where they didn't want to go to their top bullpen arms, did you think a little bit about Trey Mancini and Jorge Lopez? Sure. I can't lie. I did. I do. I know Austin Hayes is struggling mightily right now. You think about the idea that you'd like to have one more bat that you could turn to instead of your next option being Brett Phillips. I guess more people are starting to do the math and believe that players can be called up starting next week without losing their rookie status. So there's this feeling that like next week might be when we see a Gunnar Henderson or a Kyle Stowers. Feels like Stowers maybe a little bit closer than Henderson. I know that dumb Twitter account that's trying to dupe people put out a Stowers one today, hoping to get everybody duped like they did with the Gunnar a couple weeks ago. I don't. It's a conversation. I don't want to be the old man yelling at the cloud again. I've already done Alanis Morissette and U2 radio today, so maybe I should slow down on all of my old guyisms. It's hard to not think about what this team could have done or what they should be doing, and how you conflate the feeling of now versus the feeling of what's coming. And I don't have the correct answers. I also admittedly, and I don't know how you guys feel, but I admittedly go through a feeling every time the Orioles lose a game, every time. I don't know if you've ever been at a place where you didn't think you were supposed to be. Like, I don't know if you ever had a job that you didn't think you were qualified for, or you were an unpopular kid that was invited to the popular kid's party. I don't know if you've ever been in those situations. I was never unpopular, but I was never like, Rico Suave, right? Like, I was never the best-looking kid. I was like the guy that everybody got along with. That's sort of like my life is. I just going to get along with everybody. And I can make a joke every now and then, so it was a whole thing. But then, like, you'd start dating a pretty girl, and you'd be like, she's going to figure it out. Like, one of these days, she's going to be like, what are you doing here? And I'll be like, okay. And I'm not going to be mad. Like, I understand. I totally get it. You're going to do better than me. I'll see myself out. That's how I feel when the Orioles lose a game. When the Orioles lose a game, I feel like we're not supposed to be at the party. Like, somebody accidentally invited us, or like their parents forced them to invite us. We got there. We looked around. Everybody's playing 7 Minutes in Heaven, and you're like, oh, right. They don't want to go in the closet with me. Like, that they don't want to do that. Do kids still play 7 Minutes in Heaven, Griffin?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
That was a shame. Learned a lot about life playing 7 Minutes in Heaven. Although I'm pretty sure it's a good idea that we don't do that anymore, because it's whatever. It's a conversation for a different day. Boy, I'm really going deep today. I feel that way. Every time the Orioles lose a game, I'm like, right, I get it. We're not supposed to be here. Bottom's going to fall out. Sorry to bother your playoff race, guys. Sorry.
And then
Sorry. But we'll just go back. And yes, for the most part, like last weekend when they lost 2 games, and you're like, oh, this is the end of my only friend. So add the Doors to my list today.
All right.
When you feel that, and I remember, who do we have on a Monday? I feel like I asked some, Bordick maybe. I was like, do you worry at all that, like, they face a little adversity and maybe it snowballs and ultimately they kind of go back to reality? Add Eminem to the list. Killing it this morning. Back to the reality, Mom Spaghetti, the whole thing. And he was like, man, not really. And sure enough, they turned around and they won the first 2 games in Toronto and they stabilized. But I'm telling you, I get that feeling. I get the feeling every time. Like when I got hired to call DC United Soccer, despite the fact that I had done maybe 6 soccer matches in my life to that point. And I was like, they're going to figure it out. I tried telling, the first time they asked me, I was like, I'm not sure I'm qualified, guys. I'm not sure. Paying me an awful lot of money to do this. I'm not sure I'm qualified. And they were like, nope, we've heard you. We listened to you do broadcasts at Loyola, and we believe in you. I'm like, okay. And I just kept sitting there thinking, somebody's going to walk in angry. Somebody's going to walk in. They're going to say, what is this fraud doing here? Who is this person? When I was doing afternoons on ESPN Radio 1300 when I was 22 years old, wildly unqualified. Wildly. I just kept thinking at some point, somebody's going to walk in and they're going to say, this guy should be working at a Best Buy. This guy should be a Chick-fil-A, something like that. This guy shouldn't be here doing afternoon radio on ESPN Radio 1300. That shouldn't be the case. I feel that way when the Orioles lose a game. I just, like, every time it happens, there's this sinking feeling in my stomach, like, yo, we're not supposed, right, sorry. We'll see ourselves out. Don't worry. I know. We're wrecking your party. My apologies. See you guys. It's just genuinely the way that I feel. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll turn around today, and this should be a respite for them. Facing a Cubs team that, for the most part, is going through the motions at this point. At home, it should be some sort of respite for them. Boston suddenly looks more difficult for 3 games this weekend, and one of them, of course, isn't a home game. One of them is up in Williamsport. And there's some of the odd nature of all of that. And you're never going to have a favorable pitching matchup because you can't. Although these guys, Spencer Watkins goes back into the rotation today. The last time he started, he pitched quite well, but then oddly had his next start skipped because reasons. So I don't know what to expect from Spencer Watkins because we've seen a lot of bad, and then we saw good. And so Could be anything. Could be anything. I don't know if just getting to the point where the Orioles feel like they can call up some more guys is enough to make me feel drastically different. I feel like if you're gonna get through this somehow, you're gonna be getting through it with smoke and mirrors, because that's how they've gotten to this point. I mean, we have to be honest about that. Yes, they've gotten through it with an outstanding bullpen that has been remarkably taxed and lost some of its depth. They've gotten through it with excellent outfield defense. But one of the trade-offs right now for that outfield defense is if that you have Austin Hayes in the lineup every night, either he's still dealing with the injury, something is impacting him at the plate. He is not producing even minimally at the plate. So the outfield defense, which has been excellent, by the way, the defense as a whole has been excellent, but particularly to me, the outfield, the range, the number of balls, and why the pitching has been able to be better, because the number of balls that could be more damaging that aren't damaging because of how much ground this outfield is covering is remarkable. But you're trading something off at the moment because Austin Hayes can't hit. So do you put somebody else out there? I mean, should it be McKenna more often? I know Brett Phillips can play a little bit of defense. He can't hit either. I guess McKenna would be the answer. I guess I'm answering my own question because he's the one that's hitting right now. I don't think he's quite as good defensively as Austin Hayes. I don't think we can even pretend that. But you got who you got. I mean, somebody's got to play out there. That doesn't mean they can't get through it because they've gotten to this point. It's not if you think it's offensive for me to say smoke and mirrors, you're not paying attention. On paper, this team should not be this good. But yet they are. But there's also a reason why twice in the last 4 days they have been at risk of getting perfectoed. Twice in 4 days. Because there's not a lot there. They are playing above their heads, and it's been magical, and may it continue. And I'm not telling you I doubt it. I'm just merely being realistic about it. It's going to be very hard. Even on a week that was overall good. This was an overall good week for the Orioles. Taken 2 out of 3 in Toronto. Even in an overall good week, they have still ceded ground in the playoff race. Not because they've fallen further behind. They were a game and a half out to start. They're a game and a half out now. But there's already another team in front of them. And still a team breathing down their neck, a half game behind them. And now the Red Sox charging just 2.5 behind them. That's how difficult it is, what they're up against. It is very, very hard for them to find a way through. Winning 3 out of 6 games, playing 500 baseball is not going to get them there. And over their last 6 games, they're 500.
Did you have any issue with Adley not being in the lineup yesterday?
No, they're gonna. This is what the way it's gonna work. They're gonna day game after night game. He's not gonna be
like not
oh,
DH?
not, you mean
yeah,
the
like
fact that he didn't DH.
Especially with the Cubs, like it's a makeup day today.
Right, like you're saying that game is more important than this game is. I get the argument. I saw that from a couple of people on Twitter. I'm not going to get too worked up about it because I do think that when you're a catcher, you inevitably have to get some days off. Like somewhere it's got to happen. You've got to get a day off. I'd have to look more. I didn't look into what, I didn't look into anything advanced as far as numbers are concerned to know if like Ross Stripling has particular success against left-handed hit. I don't know enough about that to have a loud take. It is tough when you only have so many guys in your lineup hitting to not have the guys in your lineup that are hitting in your lineup. It's part of the problem. It's a big part of the problem. It's tough. Orioles back at it this afternoon. They play the makeup game against the Cubs, 3 o'clock today. Spencer Watkins is on the mound for that one. He'll be opposed by Adrian Sampson. for this makeup game between the Orioles and the Cubs. All right, today's show brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, the FanDuel Sportsbook. UFC 278 coming up on Saturday night. The place to be is the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland because they've got 61 self-service kiosks all over. They have now spread them out a little bit more, so there's not the bunching and the crazy lines. You can get up, get your bets in. Bet pads start next Tuesday, so they won't be there in time for UFC 278, but you want to spend $75 on a fight, be my guest. Go do it. And then order some food. All of a sudden, you're up over $100, and you're not winning anything. Or you go to the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. You pay nothing to watch the fight. You win money betting on the fights, and you come out on top. I mean, look, man, I didn't do a lot of math, but I feel like one's better than the other. Email events at sportssocialmd.com right now to reserve your spot for UFC 278 on Saturday night. We have a new fantasy football whiz at PressBox. His name is Joe Serpico, and he joins us for the first time here on GCR. Joe, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me, guys.
So I got to be honest.
I
got to be honest about this, Joe. Like I like you, and I'm glad to have you on board. But you got to understand, like, Ken's been my friend for a long time, so I'm not going to call you dad, okay? Like, I'm just not going to call you dad. I hope you understand that.
No, I got some big shoes to fill replacing the legendary KZ.
There's no doubt.
I appreciate him for doing his part for me to get this opportunity. But time for a younger, fresher face.
Look at that. Look at that. That's kind of but in fairness, anybody's younger than Ken, so that doesn't say a whole lot. All right, let's get into it, Joe. Let's start off. Just give me right now, if you had to line it up today, PPR, top 5 picks to you go in what order?
For me, 1 through 5, it's Christian McCaffrey at number 1, Jonathan Taylor at 2. You can't go wrong either way with either one of those guys as your number 1. But then to round out my 5, it would be 3, Austin Eckler, 4, Najee Harris, and then 5, Dalvin Cook.
Okay.
As you can see, I'm big on the running backs. I know some guys around the interweb have a couple of those wide receivers a little bit higher, but I like to have my running backs first and worry about receiver later.
I have really sensed it, and I look, I don't. I legally will not do drafts before Labor Day weekend. Like, if you invite me to something that's before Labor Day weekend, get the F out. Players still get hurt. I'm not going to do that. I have sensed actually more of like a consensus being there is more of a disparity between running backs, and you don't have the option any longer of trying to go bold and go 0 running back and hope for the best. I have felt like there's been more of a pressure that you've got to take running backs and that you're almost going to have to reach on running backs because it feels like there's such a drop-off after, say, like the first 14.
I think 14 is actually a really accurate number. After your first 14, it gets a little bit dicey there. You could say about 14 to 16 guys that you can rely on each week where you can kind of just set it and forget, as opposed to there's a couple of situations around the league where, well, one, because of the way they're not playing in preseason, it's kind of hard to judge how some of these running back by committee situations are going to go. But, yeah, you definitely want to go get as many running backs as possible because after that it's kind of a game for you to basically figure out who's going to be the starter for,
right?
Situations like Miami and Seattle and even New England now. There's some rumblings that Ramondre Stevenson could take over for Damian Harris. So if you can get yourself one of those top, let's say, 14 guys, you got off to a good start because after that, it's kind of, shooting for flyers essentially at that point.
Give me some names. Let's stick with the running backs. Give me some names that after you get past those top guys, you'd say, okay, think about it. Just think about flyers on, give me 2 or 3 guys that might be rookies, that maybe either nobody's heard of or, you have to be Joe Serpico to have heard of. Just give me a couple of names. You'd say, file this name away as you get closer to your draft because at a certain point, it's time to start going that route.
Well, so I just recently put up my my sleepers and breakouts for running backs over on PressBox, and the 2 names that come to mind, sleeper-wise, would be Devin Singletary. The way he kind of came on down the stretch, I know in the middle of the season last year, you were probably pulling your hair out trying to go between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. But down the stretch, the final 5 games of the regular season, they finally gave him all of the opportunities, and he averaged about a little over 18 points a game, and that continued in the playoffs where he had 36 points in the 2 playoff games. And the unique thing about that is in the playoff games, Zach Moss only had 1 carry. That means it was basically Devin Singletary's job from that point forward. A little bit of concern because they did draft James Cook in the 2nd round, but he's more of a pass-catching back. So Devin Singletary is my top sleeper right now as far as running backs goes. And then as far as another guy that I have my eye on is Tyler Algier, the running back for the Falcons. It's no real secret that Cordero Patterson kind of broke down as the season ended. It was the most touches he had, and it was like 110, 115 touches more than he's ever had in a regular season. So there's no real secret that they want to lighten his workload, use him more as the jack of all trades that he was initially intended to do. And then that, for me, gives Algier as somebody who's, I think, going to by season's end is going to handle the bulk of the carries for the Falcons. Now, the Falcons might not be that good. They might not get that many scoring opportunities. But, again, I think he's the guy by let's say, the middle part of the season. He's going to be the lead back. And then, you'll see Patterson all throughout the formation.
New PressBox fantasy football analyst Joe Serpico with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Joe, admittedly, so this is a rule, and you'll get to know this about me. I know guys that stink, and I don't want those guys on my team. Instead, I'd rather take someone who's new that might not stink, right? Like, that's kind of why I tend to take a lot of rookies as drafts go on. And I look around at guys that I want to be excited about, but I keep saying, but those offenses stink, right? Like, I look at a Damian Pierce, and I look at a Kenneth Walker, and I look at a Breece Hall, and I look at a Bijan Robinson and places like that, and I'm like, boy, those are guys that I think could really move into big roles and have big opportunities. But then I also look at them and say, yes, but those teams have no quarterback and will probably be getting their brains beat in a lot during the course of the season. How do you handle the excitement of a player versus maybe this isn't a place that's going to be able to have the most success on the grounds?
Well, so for fantasy purposes, it is a little bit harder for, let's say, a running back, just because if your quarterback stinks, we all know that, teams will stack the box against them and make it a little bit more difficult for them. So rookie running backs on bad offenses, not to say you want to stay away from them because I just named one that's going to be on a bad offense. You mentioned Breece Hall. He's somebody who probably is going to get a ton of touches as a running back for the Jets. How good are the Jets going to be this year? But on the flip side for receivers, if you're on a receiver that's on a bad offense, that's actually something you can almost take advantage of just because of the sense of, if they're trailing a lot in games, then, you know they're going to come out swinging. Darnell Mooney's not necessarily a rookie, but he's a guy that I've kind of been targeting quite a bit for the Bears just because somebody on that team's got to catch passes. Drake London, there's a rookie receiver. I just mentioned the Falcons not that long ago. He's another guy that I think is going to put up big numbers just because the Falcons are going to be trailing quite a bit, and outside Kyle Pitts, there isn't a whole lot of receiving options there. So when you're looking at those kind of bad offenses, it's hard to trust a running back in that situation. But the receivers, you can almost, I don't want to say guarantee that they're going to produce, but they're going to get a lot more opportunity just because those teams are going to be trailing so much that, they're going to get a ton of targets in the passing game.
All right, let's, again, stay PPR. When is the first place that you start thinking about taking a wide receiver? And I did happen to see your rankings. Why are you Justin Jefferson over Cooper Kupp?
I think, so for me, Justin Jefferson is just because, one, I don't want to say the obvious that he's younger, but I do think it definitely helps that he's moving in an offense that's more pass-happy than he was. I mean, under Mike Zimmer, they were predominantly a run-first team, and he still put up mega numbers. So now you put Kevin O'Connell in there as his head coach, and that just makes me think that he's in line for a monster season. He might flirt with Cooper Kupp's numbers from last year. Now, how much of the play calling was he doing last year as opposed to Sean McVay? We'll probably never know. But, coming into that same type of offense, his numbers have been off the charts the first two. I believe he's over 3,000 yards receiving in his first 2 NFL seasons. And again, wouldn't surprise me if he flirts with the 2,000-yard mark this year. And he is, for me, without a doubt, the number one receiver in the game. You can say what you want about Kupp, Chase, some of the other guys that are out there. Right now, Justin Jefferson, what he does, as a route runner, as a deep threat, the guy can do it all, and that's why I got him as my top receiver. And to go back to your question of where I would take him, I have him ranked 7th. If you see him kind of falling in that general area, you can't go wrong with him to start off your team. But then, like we talked about before, you run the risk of not having any alpha running back with your next pick. So that's why, for me, a lot of the times you're going to see me take a running back in round 1, and most of the time in round 2 as well, to be honest.
So that's what I was going to say. So despite where you have him ranked, you're saying if you're sitting down doing a draft, the likelihood is you're still probably you're letting that go and you're taking from the next crop of wide receivers.
Pretty much, yeah. So if you've looked at a lot of the mock drafts I've done over at PressBox online, it's predominantly been running backs early. I like to ideally go 3 running backs early. That way you don't have to worry about that for the rest of the season. You got your 2 running backs and a flex. But, sometimes the board kind of plays itself out. Just the other day I did one where I only had a running back in the 2nd round, and then I did 3 receivers just to kind of see how it looked. And, it gets a little dicey in the running back position kind of quick. So it almost reinforces the fact that you want to, at least in your first 3 rounds, try to escape with 2 starting running backs. Because then after that, like I said before, you're kind of taking flyers on guys. And not to say that you want to hope injury on somebody, but those guys in the middle tiers, your Tony Pollards, your Kareem Hunts, A.J. Dillons, they're splitting times, but that they would be lead guys if there was an injury. Again, we don't want injury, but that's what you draft those guys for.
It does also feel to me like wide receiver is just deeper in general than it's been in a while. It feels like, even within, the 20s, you're like, man, I kind of like these guys. These are guys that I wouldn't be, furious if I'm playing these guys every week.
No, that's 100% true, too. There are some of the guys that I really like that are not in your, let's say, consensus top 10. You can find Keenan Allen right outside of the 11. Cortland Sutton is another name you're seeing a lot there. A.J. Brown might just be just on the cuffs there of that 9 and 10 mark. Brandon Cooks is a guy that I've always been high on. He always seems to be outside of your top 20 when you're doing your draft, but then by the time the season's over, the guy's got over 1,000 yards. He's somebody that I'm big on this year. He's coming off a year. He led the Texans in targets and receptions that are both career highs for him. Again, another situation where offense where there's not a whole lot going for them, so he's going to get peppered with targets. So, yeah, there's a ton of receivers that you can find in those, let's say, 15 to 30 mark that by the season's end, I think you're going to be satisfied with them being as your number 1 or number 2.
Yeah, that's the sense that I get. I mean, I really do. I feel like there is just a deep, deep group. And then the tight end thing. Where are you willing to take a tight end, and how deep – like, whose name at this point, when you see this person come off the board, do you say, hey, you better make your move soon because there's going to be a serious drop-off after this point? So
I think there's 5 guys that if you get them in, let's say, the first 5 or 6 rounds, you're pretty set at, with that being Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, and Darren Waller. I personally believe that if you don't get one of those guys in your first, let's say, 5, 6 picks, wait until, say, rounds 9 or 10. And there's a class of guys that they're not going to be world beaters like the other 5, but you can't really complain about if you end up with a team with, let's say, a Dallas Goedert or a Zach Ertz or a T.J. Hawkinson or even the Cowboys' Dalton Schultz. Yeah, you can wait a little bit on those guys. They're not going to give you the same type of production as the aforementioned 5, but those, I would say, is the next 5. There's a little bit of a tier there before you drop off into your, then you're really just shooting for a flyer, whether it be your Irv Smith or Albert O or even a Noah Fant who's getting an opportunity to buy himself there in Seattle. So there are some guys you could definitely find later at tight end if you want to fill out your wide receivers and running back positions early, because I'm a big proponent on tight end and quarterback as late as possible.
So that was where I was going to go next. I know Ken was always a quarterback as late as possible guy, and it took me a little while to come around. Like, I want to say I'd still, even 8 years ago, was willing to go early on a quarterback, but in the last 7 or so years, I've probably gotten to that. And I would say the same thing. When this name comes off the board amongst the quarterbacks, when do you say to yourself, all right, it might be time to think about it because there's a drop-off, or do you feel like there really are legitimately 12 to 14 viable fantasy quarterbacks that there's no point at which you have to panic?
I think, again, there's a group of 5 that if you have one of those 5, actually I'll say 6, if you have one of those 6, you should be pretty good. And those are all guys you can probably get in your top 7 to 8 rounds. Just to go over the names, it'll be Herbert, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, and Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson. I think any of those 6, you are pretty set just because they almost all do a little bit as a runner and a little bit as a passer. Well, I should say a lot as a passer for some of them's sake. But then you're looking at your guys like your Brady's and your Aaron Rodgers and your Matthew Stafford, who every year seem to finish in your top 8 quarterbacks but never seem to be drafted that high. I just did a mock draft last night, and I got Brady with my last pick. So that just kind of shows that you can definitely wait a little bit on a quarterback, feel your way around the league. If you notice, let's say, 10 out of your 12 in your league already got quarterbacks, and you still have, like I just mentioned, a Brady or a Stafford or a Rodgers still hanging out there, by all means, continue to wait, because most teams aren't going to have a second quarterback, and if they do, they just took up an unnecessary roster spot they're going to be holding on to for most of the year. A name that I'm kind of big on this year that I have him at 12. I think others have him right around that 14 mark is Derek Carr. I think this will be the year, now that he's got a bona fide number 1 receiver in addition to Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, got Josh McDaniels now as his head coach. I think Derek Carr is going to be a real nice option for fantasy this season. I would much rather have him over some of the other guys you're seeing. I know Kirk Cousins has gotten a little bit of a bump because of a new new head coach, Jameis Winston. Some are still holding out on his 30 for 30 campaign, I guess.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people are big on Tua. Until I see it, I'm not believing it. I think Tyreek Hill is hyping him up, but I think he's going to be a little disappointed with some of those deep throws once it all gets started in a couple weeks.
All right, he's got content every day at PressBoxOnline.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Joe Serp. He is our new PressBox fantasy football analyst, Joe Serpico. Joe, appreciate it, man. We will be doing this regularly. Look forward to it. Thanks for taking the time for us.
Thanks for having me, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Joe Serpico checking in with us. And Joe, in the new print issue of PressBox, has his tips for a successful fantasy football season. That new print issue is available right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. Read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. And someone you might be taking in your fantasy football draft, Mark Andrews, is on the cover. Great story from Bo Smolka. Jim Callis from MLB.com, MLB Pipeline. They've got new prospect rankings. Gunnar Henderson's number 2. We'll talk about it next. Glenn Clark Radio. Swagger is a daily fantasy sports site created for sports fans who want some skin in the game and a real shot at winning. Forget plus-minus odds. Swagger uses points for a better way to understand probabilities. If you're tired of losing because of one bad pick, with Swagger, you don't need to be perfect to win. You just create a lineup of 4 to 10 simple player props and score points for the ones you get right. So you can be half right and all right with Swagger. Swagger offers the most player props and biggest payouts of any DFS site, as much as 50 times your buy-in. Plus, you can play all the major pro sports, including your favorite local teams. If you're ready to play, visit playwithswagger.com/pressbox to sign up, and Swagger will give you $10 free to try them out. Plus, they'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. It's free money to play with Swagger. Swagger, daily fantasy for all fankind. Playwithswagger.com/pressbox.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
The biggest pro wrestling stars today and all time all have one thing in common. You've heard them on Jobbing Out.
Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
The great Kurt Angle.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
The champ, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Bill Goldberg.
My pleasure.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mick Foley is with us.
This is the greatest name for a wrestling show I've ever heard.
MJF.
I'm glad you're happy I'm on this show because I'm freaking miserable.
Les Champions!
Chris Jericho,
Le Champion.
AJ, Aaron, Brandon, and Glenn are talking pro wrestling every week on Jobbing Out. Find it at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Summer is in full swing, and so is the summer seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash-fried pork belly with their popular Korean #2 sauce. And try their South Carolina barbecue chicken, or backed by popular demand, the lobster roll with grilled corn. Also try the irresistible crab and lobster fries, or the very berry salad with chicken. And for dessert, the Cracker Jack sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jacks. This menu will be gone. Find out more and get your order in at glorydaysgrill.com. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
To follow the show on Instagram, it's just Glenn Clark Radio. And to follow the show on OnlyFans, wait, I don't think you're supposed to know about that one. Any hoodle, take it away, boys.
All right, back in here on GCR. I talk for a living. Don't worry about me. I'm good. No problems over here. Back in here on GCR as we continue on a Thursday edition of the program. MLB.com, MLB Pipeline has a new top 100 prospects ranking, and they have new organized top 30 prospect rankings for each team after the trade deadline and the MLB draft. Joining us now to tell us more about the shifts on both lists, he is our friend Jim Callis. He's with us now here on GCR. Jim, it's Glenn. It's good to catch up. Thank you as always for taking the time, my friends.
Yeah, always glad to help out. You usually keep me on my toes, so I'm all good.
Well, let's come right at it. What the hell, man? Gunnar Henderson, #2. What? No, I'm really not worked up about this. I guess let me go the other way. How has Gunnar Henderson become this guy? Someone who wasn't drafted #1 overall like an Adley Rutschman was. What has allowed Gunnar Henderson to vault all the way up to this point where he's even in the argument as the best prospect in all of baseball?
Yeah, and we've talked about Gunnar a few times over the years. I mean, I remember going back to 2019, and obviously the focus was on Adley Rutschman. And I remember saying, watch, and again, I'm not claiming I thought Gunnar Henderson was going to be this good, but I said, watch Gunnar Henderson. We had him ranked as a late first-round talent. He's an underrated athlete, and we think he can really hit. My question was, is he going to be a short, like right. You ask about a lot of these guys. Is he a shortstop? Is he a third baseman? He's going to be a bigger guy. He's kind of split time between two positions. But I just think this is a case where, the scouting reports on him were pretty accurate about the hitting ability and athleticism. And I think that the thing that, and I think we talked about him earlier in the year too, that's made the biggest impression was, last year he kind of broke out. He didn't get to play in 2020, so he's under the radar. Last year he breaks out. He crushes low A, I think it's the high A, and it wasn't a bad year at all for a 20-year-old, but he hit 230. He struck out a decent amount, and you're like, okay, there's adjustments to make. And then he comes out this year, very young for Double A, and just rakes and walks more than he strikes out, and then goes up to Triple A and hasn't controlled the strike zone that as well, where he's walking more than striking out, but he's controlled it well, and he's raked in Triple A at 21-year-old. He's about 5 years older than your typical Triple A guy, and I just think it's a case where the guy had a lot of talent and he's gotten better every year, I guess is the simple answer. And I know you weren't giving me a hard time, but I'll throw this out there for all the Orioles fans listening. The top three prospects we have right now are Francisco Alvarez, who's the Mets catcher, Gunnar, and then
Corbin Carroll.
Carroll, drawing blank. Diamondbacks outfielder. And I liken it to the beginning of the season when I will say, I'm not trying to curry favor in Baltimore. I voted Rutschman #1 in the preseason, and we wound up as a group going with Bobby Witt Jr., and Julio Rodriguez was in the mix, and it was kind of a matter of taste. And I voted Francisco Alvarez #1 now because of the positional value of catcher, and I think he's got the best power of that group. That said, I think you can easily make a case for Gunnar because I think he's the best all-around hitter of those three guys. And I think you could also make a case for Corbin Carroll, who's probably has the best all-around tools of those three guys. So it's very similar to the beginning of the season where, and I think we've talked about this with everybody's prospect list. there's no, like, it's very rare you have a slam dunk, like here's the guy, he's clearly the number one prospect. It's more like, okay, here's a couple candidates, and what's your matter of taste? So I guess at least I've been consistent. I've gone catcher with both of my last 2 votes.
Well, as it turns out, Adley Rutschman's the greatest player in baseball history, so that one worked out okay for us.
Well, I mean, it's funny. I was going to say, I know you guys are enjoying Adley, and the Orioles are in the playoff hunt, and I mean, I thought they'd get better, and I think I've even said, the teams with the best farm systems in baseball, the really elite farm systems, tend to contend a year or two earlier than people expect. Like, they sneak up on you. And I didn't think Adley was going to have – I didn't think that the team was going to turn around like the day Adley walked in the door. But, I mean, you can make a case right now, I think, that Adley's the best catcher in baseball already. He's going to be special.
All right, so let me ask you about Gunnar. You bring up the eternal question about his position. There's this interesting thing that's occurred this season where suddenly we're looking at Jorge Mateo and wondering, like, is this guy – the real deal? Is this guy the guy that a lot of people thought he was a couple years ago? And he's playing the position at a level that is absurd. And now the bats come around a little bit. And we've been having a conversation about are you forced to say, no, Jorge Mateo is our shortstop moving forward? Or is part of the conversation, is Gunnar Henderson so good that you have to make your decisions based around him and not around Jorge Mateo? Like, Gunnar Henderson is this team shortstop moving forward. You shouldn't screw with this and put him at third base and move it and worry about what anybody else is doing. How good is Gunnar Henderson as far as being a shortstop is concerned?
I think I'll put it this way. I think Gunnar could play shortstop. I think, in your dream world where you have like the best of everything at every position, you probably have a better defensive shortstop, and Gunnar plays third. Does that make sense?
Yep,
I think he
100%.
could play an average shortstop. I think he could play an average-ish shortstop, but I think you want a better-than-average defender at shortstop. Now, the thing is, if Gunnar is playing an average shortstop, he's giving you, theoretically, lights-out production for a shortstop, so he's still an all-star caliber player. But, I don't know. I mean, just looking at the Orioles, I have a hard time thinking that Mike Elias is going to want his shortstop, no matter how good he is defensively, to have a 280 on-base percentage. And his third baseman has a 286 on-base percentage right now. I think it's a case where when Gunnar comes up, and I mean, maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, Gunnar is going to play every day. And, it probably comes down to, what the need is when they first call him up. I mean, if you were to call him up today, since you're not really getting a ton of offensive production out of Mateo or Urias, I'd probably play Mateo at short because I think he's got more range and quickness than Gunnar, and play Gunnar at third.
Yeah.
But if, Mateo went into a tailspin and didn't, his numbers went down further offensively,
right,
then I'd play Gunnar at short. It'll be interesting. I mean, he is athletic, but like I said, I think he's an average shortstop. I think he's a capable shortstop. I think, when you're drawing it up in your head, you kind of always want like a plus defender at shortstop. So, I think it'll just depend. It'll be interesting. I mean, I know Mike has said they're going to be, the purse strings will be open this off season. Yep. And, there'll be some shortstops on the market. And I'm not saying, they're going to go out and get Carlos Correa or whoever, or Trey Turner.
Right, we're shooting higher. Yeah, we're shooting for Trey Turner here. Trey Turner and Aaron Judge. Just a nice, reasonable offseason is what we're looking for in Baltimore.
Yeah. So I don't know how high they're going to spend, but I mean, that obviously is a big part of it too. Like, let's say this dream world we're in, they go out and they get Trey Turner. Well, then Gunnar Henderson's the third baseman. We've answered the question.
Right.
So, but I think it's nice. I mean, the thing that's nice is, again, I think long term, probably by the time he's 27 or 28, he'll probably kick over to third base. But, in the short term, if you need him to play shortstop, he could do that.
He is Jim Callis, MLB.com, MLBpipeline.com. He's with us here on GCR. Jim, I feel like the concerning thing for Orioles fans on your list is where DL Hall finds himself at this point. And I think there's a broader question that's being asked by a lot of people right now. And I think that we all know DL Hall is going to be given the opportunity next season to move into the Orioles starting rotation and try to show that he can get control and command his unbelievable talent. But I feel like the whispers are getting louder and louder about ultimately whether or not DL Hall really is a reliever and really is a guy with an electric arm out of the bullpen. And some have compared it to Josh Hader, perhaps. Where are you with DL Hall as far as comfort that he can be a quality major league starter versus maybe more and more concerned that he really is a relief arm?
Well, we've talked about this before, and I think I always preface this by saying I feel like I'm the low man on DL Hall. Great arm talent, like a definite big leaguer. I think he's got some of the best left-hand stuff in the minors. I am extremely skeptical he's a starter. I mean, you look at his career in the minors, he's averaged 5.1 walks per 9 innings. Oh, is he making progress? No, he's at 5.2 this year. He's never really thrown a lot of strikes at all. I think his best walk rate is 4 per 9 innings, and that was back in 2018. What's his track record of staying healthy for a full minor league season? Not real good. Like, there's always like a nick or something. Like, he's never pitched more than 94 innings in a season, and that was back in 2018 again. This year, he had a nice dominant stretch there for a little bit at AAA. But, I mean, you look at the AAA numbers, 4.76 ERA, 5.7 walks per 9 innings. He's getting hit a lot more this year. Now, granted, he's at the upper levels. He's young. But he's getting hit a lot harder than he ever has been in his career. In the past, he walked guys, but he didn't give up many hits. This year, he's giving up hits. Now I sound like I'm just crushing poor DL Hall. I like the arm talent. I felt this way for a couple of years. Look, you have to see if he can start, and I would. It's getting a little dicier now because the team's good all of a sudden. You can't just say, hey, DL, here's 16 starts, show us what you can do,
right?
Because you're trying to win now. But no, in my mind, I mean, you have to try him as a starter, and they will. But I feel like I've been the low man. I know when we are putting top 100 lists together, I'm usually the guy. Well, no, I shouldn't even say usually. I am the guy who votes DL Hall the lowest on those lists. I think it's an extremely talented arm, but I haven't seen any consistency of starting. And yes, he lost a year to the pandemic. The guy was drafted in 2017. This is his 6th year in pro ball, and there's not really a whole lot of evidence after 6 years, 5 if you want to just throw out the lost pandemic year, although he was doing some development stuff. After 5 seasons of play, where's the evidence that he can be a consistent starter? I mean, I don't think it's there at all.
I can't argue with you. I mean, I know there was the story that he was tipping pitches, and when that apparently got corrected, the next couple of starts he made, he looked unhittable. And then after those couple of starts,
if you're tipping pitches, like, it's not like the umpire's going, oh, he's tipping pitches, I'm going to call that a ball. I mean, and again, right. I'm not sitting here trying to bang on DL Hall, because he is extremely talented, but there's never been like a 2-month stretch where you've been like, oh God, he's untouchable, or he's pounding the strike zone. And this year, I think, we've seen this might be a little oversimplistic, but when you can't locate your pitches well and you start facing AA, AAA big league hitters, not only are you going to be walking guys, but when you make mistakes over the plate, they're going to get hit. And I might be wrong. Guys can turn it around, but we aren't talking about a guy who was drafted in 2019. We're talking about a guy who was drafted in 2017, and he's never had that 2-month stretch where you're like, oh, okay, now it's on. Now he's doing it. Now he's pounding the strike zone. That just hasn't happened. So if you're asking me today, I think he's a reliever. I mean, he misses a ton of bats, and he might be a Hader-like closer. I mean, obviously, it's more that unbelievable curve versus Hader's sweeping slider. But yeah, I mean, the way he can miss bats, if he can, get a little bit more precision, the stuff would theoretically play up in shorter stints. Maybe he is that closer of the future in Baltimore.
All right, which again sounds good, but would still be a disappointment based on the expectations that have existed, and frankly, the kind of lack of depth. With that in mind, Jim, the Orioles did acquire a bunch of pitchers at the deadline with the 2 moves they made. What exactly? I know they're all kind of bunched up in your guys' rankings between 10 and 15 now in the Orioles system, but what exactly did they get in Seth Johnson and Chase McDermott and Cade Povich? Are these guys that are going to be starters at the major league level?
they have a chance. And we've talked about this for years. I mean, obviously the strength of system has been position players over pitchers for the most part. I mean, Grayson Rodriguez notwithstanding. But what you need to do with pitchers, because of the attrition and because it's hard to project exactly how they're going to develop, I think it's a lot harder than hitters. You just need to get them in bulk. I use this express. I mean, Paul Snyder, the great scout with the Braves who helped build their team into a championship team, he always used to have an expression that said basically you needed 10 pitching prospects to find 2 pitchers.
Yeah.
You just need to kind of compile, grab a bunch of them. And, Seth Johnson, I think, has the ability to start. I mean, obviously, and they knew when they got him that he needed Tommy John surgery. But, I mean, he's a guy who, frankly, has only really been pitching since 2018. He's a JUCO shortstop turned pitcher, became a supplemental first-round pick after his first full year as a pitcher. It's a big fastball. It's a swing and miss slider. There's athleticism. He throws enough strikes. So he could be, McDermott's a super interesting guy. I did our Astros prospects list. So he was one of my guys before they traded him. And he's a guy who, Ball State has kind of very quietly produced a lot of pitchers recently, a lot of high draft picks. And I mean, he's a guy who's, mid-90s fastball, the slider and curveball can both be solid to plus pitches. He needs a little bit of refinement. He didn't pitch a ton in college, but he's pretty good. And then Cade Povich is kind of the polished lefty with kind of average-ish stuff, good changeup, throw strikes. He's that higher floor, lower ceiling type of guy where you feel good that he's a starter, but it's probably more of a 4 or 5. And, if it all comes together, maybe, Johnston is a 2 or 3 and McDermott's a 3 or 4 and Povich is more a 4 or 5.
Well, but given the utter lack of depth they have, they have to do this type of stuff. Like, again, I say have to.
No, it's good. I mean, I know it was kind of this weird situation where, hey, they're contending. Why are they trading these guys? But they got some good arms. And again, I think they've done a really nice job. Michael Elias and company have done a nice job of not, blowing up this year's team. But at the same point, they may get a wild card this year. They may not. I think the eye is still on the future. And I think those moves in the long term probably make the Orioles a better long-term team. I mean, I know it stinks to lose Lopez, but honestly, the relievers are so volatile, and as good a year as he was having, I would always, unless I'm like a slam dunk, contender, World Series or bust, trade. I would sell high on a reliever to get here in Chicago. The Cubs did that with David Robertson. Scott Efros, David Robertson. They traded 3 or 4 relievers and got potential starting pitchers. I would do those kinds of moves every time.
I was more okay with that when the Mancini thing is just emotional here. It's hard to have.
I know. But I mean, I think it probably makes sense.
I think they did better. I think they did better than I thought they could do, frankly. And I know that they had.
They got 2 potential starting pitchers with good arms. And then the thing that's nice is, let's say Johnson and McDermott don't work out as starting pitchers. They both have big time stuff to where, you could at least say, okay, well, maybe that guy's not a starter. Maybe that guy winds up being a really good reliever too. So look, I get that one. I mean, that one was going to be tough. Everybody knew it was probably coming, and it was still going to be tough. But I thought that was a good. I mean, I thought they got. I've always Seth Johnson was one of my draft guys because I do North Carolina, and he was a Campbell, and Chase McDermott was one of my Astros guys, and I also did the Indiana for the draft. So I had Ball State, and when the trade was announced, I knew everybody knew Johnson needed Tommy John. I was like, wow, that's a pretty good trade for Baltimore. So, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, regardless of whether they make the playoffs this year. This year's been, I think, more fun than anybody could have expected. Adley has been everything he was supposed to be. And, here's the thing on that. One, I mean, I've told you, I've thrown out the Mark Teixeira as a Gold Glove catcher comp that I got. And I've been, high on Adley like everybody else has been. But I will say this. Not only is his talent rare, I think he's the best catching prospect to come out of the draft in 3 years I've been covering it. It's also very rare to see a guy go into the big leagues and make that kind of impact immediately. So that, that makes you feel, I think, even better. I mean, Bobby Witt had some ups and downs, and Julio Rodriguez had some ups and downs, and Adley, even coming off an injury, just came in and I know he got off to a slow start for 8 games, but I mean, he was pretty much good, 2 weeks into his big league career. And so, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, I would be very excited to be an Orioles fan right now.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, and we have literally watched this kid become a superstar right in front of our eyes, and it's a special thing. It gives you goosebumps when you watch him play because you know exactly what you're watching. It's really,
and he's
cool.
a great makeup too. I mean, he's an unbelievable makeup. I mean, you're there on the scene, and I'm not, but I mean, if he's not already the face of the franchise, I mean, he's going to be very soon. And I mean, he's not going to be Mr. Snappy quote, but I mean, I just think there's leadership skills there. I think he gets it. I think he understands it. Super nice kid. Like, I'm getting all this.
Jim, we're
I'm
enamored.
getting all excited just talking about it.
Right, we're enamored with all of it.
I mean,
When he runs up and hugs guys when the game is over, and him meeting them at the mound at the end of an inning and walking off the field with we're enamored with all of it. All of it. We're just in love. It's.
I'll throw some more hyperbole. I mean, he's probably going to be the most beloved Oriole since Cal Ripken Jr.
Shoo.
I mean, that's
Shoo.
no. I mean, I think he's going to be that type of makeup, and I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame yet, but
right.
if you made me bet, like, hey Jim, is he going to the Hall of Fame or not, yes or no, I would say yes. I mean, I know that's crazy to say, but, well, I mean, if it's a binary answer, I'll say yes, because I just don't think there's catches and fools like that. But I just think the makeup and the character and the talent, I think he could. He's not going to play in 2,100 straight games behind the plate, but like, I think he's going to be the most beloved Oriole since Cal Ripken Jr. And I don't know if Cal can ever be topped. So, I mean.
Right. And to be fair, it's not as if they've had a ton of beloved guys since then, but Adam Jones was pretty beloved in this city, right? Like, he was truly a serious figure. And to your point, if Adley Rutschman is this good, he will be that beloved. Jim Callis, whenever we do this, I think I could do this for another 20 minutes, but that's not fair to you.
I'm all excited now. I could talk Adley for 20 more minutes. I'm all excited now too. And and I'll throw this at you. We haven't done our farm system rankings yet. We're working on them. They'll be out next week. But I mean, I think everybody else has had the Orioles number 1, and I think we're going to have the Orioles number 1. And I'll just throw out that to be the number 1 farm system after you've graduated somebody like Adley Rutschman to the big leagues, that's pretty impressive as well. And we didn't even talk about Jackson Holliday. Jackson Holliday is going to be really good too.
We like all of this.
And he's your shortstop. He's your shortstop, Glenn. I mean, 4 or 5 years down the road, I think Jackson Holliday is a little bit more quicker and athletic, so he would be your shortstop maybe. Although I don't know that Jackson's a 60 shortstop, so who knows? But like, if we're looking down the road, you probably are putting Gunnar at third and Jackson at short.
Could he rise as quickly as Bobby Witt did?
He could because I actually think he's more polished as a hitter than Witt was coming out of high school. Okay. I sound like Mr. Hyperbole here, but we're talking about exciting players. If you compare Jackson Holliday to Bobby Witt coming out of high school, I think Bobby's a little bit more athletic. He's quicker. The arm's stronger. He probably had more power. Like, we're talking half grades. We're not huge difference in power. But I think Jackson was a more polished hitter. Like Bobby swung and missed some on the high school circuit, which Jackson did last year when he was trying to do too much, but he really tightened it up. And I just think, Jackson Holliday is one of those elite type high school players who, might be ready for the big leagues by the time he's 21 years old.
We, again, could do it for another hour. At Jim Callis, MLB on Twitter.
I'm all excited. I'm excited talking about these guys.
Dude, this is why I love our segments, my friend. This is why it means I should probably pay you for the number of segments that you've done. This is a promise. At some point when you, for whatever reason, end up in town, I'm taking you out. We're getting you some crab cakes. We're doing whatever we do. This is a promise. You have been so good and so giving over the years. I owe you, all right? So at some point.
I appreciate that, Glenn. And I was going to say, too, the thing that's fun about doing your show is you ask good questions, like especially like leading up to the draft, because it seems like most years the Orioles have had a top 5 pick for 4 or 5 years in a row. And you'll ask questions and you'll really put guys in perspective. Like, so are you saying this, or how does it, it's like you make me think. So I always enjoy our conversations. So it's no problem at all. I really enjoy it.
Truly appreciate you, sir. Thanks, Jim. We'll talk soon. Great, Jim.
Okay.
Callis.
Take care, Glenn.
Love that guy, man. Love that guy. He's a 60 as a guest. He's a 70 as a guest. He's the best. Always appreciate that. And, yeah, I'm not really worked up about Gunnar being number 1 or number 2. And I'm really not. I can't. How does that get you worked up? If somebody's number 1 or number 2 on the list. What they're telling you is they think the world of that person. This isn't like, Lamar Jackson being lower on the list and then there being a defensive coordinator that says, 12 MVPs, he stinks. This is not that. This is them saying Gunnar Henderson is a sure thing. Gunnar Henderson, who was not a top 5 pick in the draft, is a sure thing to be a high-level Major League Baseball player. It can't be anything but good news. Now, the DL Hall thing, the evidence is building. I know Stan will be in here tomorrow, and Stan's been talking about this for a while. And there are more and more and more and more people that are lining up with not the answer. And maybe it goes back to the conversation we had yesterday in Would You Rather Wednesday about whether you go all pitching or try to add a bat too. Like, in doing our mental math for what this looks like next year, we have kept putting DL Hall into the equation. And are we making an immediate mistake? It's one thing to say, hey, DL Hall might not become that guy down the road, but is there a chance that at a time where you're trying to, as Mike Elias describes it as liftoff, you're trying to take that next step, that you're hurting yourself, you're neutering yourself in the process because you're relying on DL Hall, and ultimately he's not the guy. Look, they've got to give DL Hall a chance to start. That has to happen. The good news is, even though we think all of these guys have pitched above their heads, tell me how many guys that are currently in the rotation that you say need to be in the rotation again next year. I mean, if Kramer were to keep pitching like this, that becomes the. I guess I have to revisit this at the end of the year. Kramer would be a guy that if he were to keep pitching like this, you'd probably say he needs to get a shot at being back in the rotation next year. Spencer Watkins, nope. Austin Voth, as good as he was yesterday, no. Jordan Lyles is going to be here, so you kind of say you might as well leave him in the rotation, but the question maybe becomes, can you do better than Jordan Lyles? And Kyle Bradish, you want him to be that guy, but you've yet to see evidence that he is. So there are 2 guys that are penciled in the rotation. A healthy John Means, a healthy Grayson Rodriguez will be in the rotation next year. So you're filling that out for 5. We've counted on DL Hall being one of those guys. If you're putting Jordan Lyles in for another year just because he's here, all of a sudden you're nearly filling a rotation. And now we're talking about, do you want to give Dean Kramer another shot? Do you want to, you want Kyle Bradish to get more of an opportunity, you just haven't seen it. I wonder if at some point the Orioles have to have the conversation. And what's really interesting is if Dean Kramer comes up and pitches well out of a relief role. If when they bring him back up in a couple of weeks, he's a really helpful piece out of the bullpen. I just wonder what that makes them think about. I still don't believe that he's not in the rotation, that he's not given the opportunity. But as you're trying to win, to Jim Callis' point, you would have been better off doing that this year with DL Hall, right? When you weren't necessarily trying to win, when you could kind of afford to experiment and end up being wrong. Now, it might be tough. If you have expectations next season and you're purposely trying to win, you might end up being disappointed. I hope that's not the case. I hope DL Hall figures it out. I hope he becomes a high-level starting pitcher. But, boy, I can't shake how many people are kind of lining up with the idea that he's not. And, again, to their point, the numbers overall say he isn't. The tipping pitches thing might explain why he was getting hit a little bit, but it doesn't explain why he still can't find the zone. And for a couple of starts after that, again, he looked unbelievable. But that was all of a couple starts. They got to sign a pitcher. They got to spend money, specifically on a starting pitcher. It's got to happen. All right, hour number 2 of today's program is brought to you by Swagger. How'd you do?
Bad.
Maybe I shouldn't ask.
I know. Goldschmidt. Hey, Goldschmidt's my guy now. I mean, he once again had 2 total bases plus. Who was the other guy? I went 2 for 5. I went with 5 picks. Mountcastle went over again. Vladdy didn't help me out.
He did.
Vladdy. I mean, the whole Blue Jays offense came alive in the 7th inning, except for Vladdy. Who else did I have? Oh, I had Scherzer to allow less than 3 earned runs. So he was cruising through, I think, 6 or 7, and then I guess they left him out there too long, and then Atlanta started coming back, and he ended up letting up 4 runs. Scherzer did. So that one hurt. I forget who. And then Francisco Lindor also had 2 total bases. So he hit for me. Lindor and Goldschmidt were my only 2 hits.
Those are your 2 clicks. Yikes. Well,
it's a new day.
That's true. And a new opportunity to play a ticket with Swagger. And the good news is you don't have to use your money. Playwithswagger.com/PressBox. Go right now and get signed up. You get $10 free. And then they match your first $100 up to $100. So let me make sure I say that correctly. Your first deposit up to $100. So if you deposit $43, they're going to match $43. If you deposit $69, they're going to match $69. If you deposit $700, they're going to match $100 because the number is 100. They cut off at 100. But that's on top of the $10 you already got free. So you can get up to $110 free. And if you start winning, you might never play with your own money. You can't bet on your phone or on your computer yet in Maryland. It's infuriating. I'm sorry. I wish they could get it fixed. It bothers me, but it ain't fixed yet. It's what it is. So instead, feel like you're betting when you play Swagger. Use that free money, and you don't have to win them all. You got to do better than Griffin did. Yeah. Still have to do better than Griffin did.
You can only do better than me.
That's true. It's true. You play these player props, and you don't have to. Griffin plays. Now, is that Action X that you're playing?
I did. So I had been doing the Pick X, which was like the 3 options. So yesterday I was like, oh, maybe it's because I keep dealing with the Pick X. So I went Action X, and I still failed miserably.
It's not great. Not a great sign. All right, you're gonna do better than Griffin. That's my promise.
You have to. You have
to do better than Griffin. You're playing player props. You're playing parlays, and unlike when you bet, you don't have to hit every leg of your parlay. You can go 3 for 5. You could go 4 for 6. You could go 7 for 10. If you've got the right points, you're going to be a winner. It's a point system. You can find out more. Again, playwithswagger.com/PressBox. Coby Mayo is one of the top 10 prospects in the Orioles system. He's with the Bowie Baysox. He's going to join us next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Visit Howard County presents the 2022 Major League Quidditch Championship, a Harry Potter-inspired, real-life, full-contact, mixed-gender, 12-team Quidditch tournament happening at Troy Park in Elkridge, August 20th through the 22nd. For tickets and more information, go to visithowardcounty.com. Maryland, be open for it.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The 2022 baseball season is in full swing, and the future is brighter than ever for your Baltimore Orioles. I'm Paul Valley.
And I'm Zach Goodman.
And together we bring you the Bat Around every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon with everything you need to know about the Orioles and baseball as a whole. From veterans like Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, and Ryan Mountcastle,
to young stars like Adley Rutschman, Grayson Rodriguez, and DL Hall.
We've got you covered for every game, every pitch,
and every debut.
You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or you can listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. So join us live on the Bat Around every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Summer is in full swing, and so is the summer seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash-fried pork belly with their popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and try their South Carolina barbecue chicken, or back by popular demand, the lobster roll with grilled corn. Also try the irresistible crab and lobster fries, or the very berry salad with chicken. And for dessert, the Cracker Jack sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jacks. This menu will be gone. Find out more and get your order in at glorydaysgrill.com. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka profiles Ravens tight end Mark Andrews' path to NFL stardom, from his late decision to play the sport full-time through having to overcome type 1 diabetes and more. Also, inside, we introduce you to football players at Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan State. And we give you everything you need to know for betting football this season. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of demos, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
It's statistically proven that the show sounds better if you're not wearing pants. Like me. Right now. You're listening to Glenn Clark Radio.
Back in here on GCR, let me cover two things real quick before Coby Mayo joins us. One, I know it's Twitter. I know Twitter's not real, except, unfortunately, Twitter's probably more real than real is anymore. We're getting our panties in a bunch about this interview that Jonathan Jones from CBS did with Lamar Jackson. It was awkward. It was strange. I don't know, where it came from that Jonathan Jones was told, hey, it's really weird is that Lamar doesn't even love working out, and so he decided to. I don't know what that's all about. I don't really know if maybe afterwards Lamar Jackson didn't say, yeah, you're right. I don't know. It's weird. But we're getting so worked up about it when, if anything, it's just innocuous. It's irrelevant. The internet dunk-on culture is wildly out of control. This is nothing. Who cares? Can you pull it up if people haven't seen? Just search. It's not that hard. If people haven't seen it, we can find it very quickly. I think everybody on the planet has shared it today. It's a weird, innocuous interaction, and like everybody else, I don't even know where it went from there because I didn't watch the rest of the interview. And maybe afterwards, Lamar gave a really thoughtful answer about, look, hey, growing up, I wasn't the biggest. I don't know. I just know it ain't worth it. We're bored because there aren't games being played. This stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't. Have you really not found it? For God's sakes, I will send it to you. Give me 2 seconds. I will get it to you. I'm in the midst of a. By the way, John from Little Rock says never schedule a draft on the holiday weekend. No. It's the point of the holiday. It's the point of the holiday. Go to the beach Memorial Day weekend. Labor Day weekend is for fantasy drafts. That's when you do them. You found it?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Well, I hope.
I see you're getting a little bigger, getting a little thicker, a little muscular.
Yeah.
I hear that you don't like working out, though. Tell me about that.
Who said that?
Sources.
What sources? I don't know about that. I had to do something to get this size,
I see you.
But there's nothing offensive there. Nothing at all. Is it weird? Is it a little uncomfortable? Yes. There's nothing offensive. For whatever reason, somebody told Jonathan Jones that. Now, maybe they told him that to be a jerk. Maybe it was somebody that has no idea what they're talking about. Somebody told Jonathan Jones that. But it's not the end of the world. Dude's going around to every training camp, and he's trying to get some sort of tidbit from somebody. Hey, how can I have some fun and get Lamar Jackson to be light with me? Hey, mention it's weird, Lamar's doing all this work, but the funny thing is he doesn't actually love doing that. He'd rather be out running than be in the gym lifting weights. And I have no idea if that's true or not. I don't know. And you don't know either because he never actually answered it. He just said, well, I got to do something. Well, that's not what the question was. It's the weird part. That's not what the question was. Now, maybe he's completely wrong. But in the end, at best, it's innocuous. It's irrelevant. You're just bored because you don't have a game to talk about. So you want to dunk on something because it feels like it gives you a win. You're just bored. We need football to start. So instead, we obsess over every little thing. Somebody literally still asking me why they released Brett Hundley. What question is that? Brett Hundley was never going to be on the team. Like, what are we doing here? I think there are still people that have confused Brett Hundley with Tyler Huntley. I think there are still people that have confused those two things, that think that Brett Hundley is Tyler Huntley because their names are similar. And by the way, Tyler Huntley's not good either. He's going to be the backup quarterback on this team, but we saw what happened when he had to play. He's not good. We're just bored. We're so bored. Oh, they released Brett Hundley. I'm familiar with him. He was Aaron Rodgers' backup once. Yes, now he's not that. There's a reason why he was available to be had 3 weeks ago when they just need another arm for camp. And I'm not trying to be disparaging to Brett Hundley, who I'm sure is a good guy and is far more athletic than I am and talented and all those things. But he was never going to make the team. We're just bored because there aren't any games to watch yet. All right. I think I got it all out of my system. I'm sorry. Coby Mayo didn't deserve that. Coby Mayo is a hell of a baseball player. We're very excited about him. It's time for us to make our weekly trip to the Bowie Baysox, and joining us now, one of the top prospects in the entire Orioles system. He is Coby Mayo. He's with us here on GCR. Coby, it's Glenn. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
I apologize for subjecting you to me losing my mind there for a second. We've all got our jobs to do.
The football season can be frustrating.
Dude,
I understand.
You know what it really is? We just need the games to start. Are you like a big football guy? Like, are you into playing fantasy football, stuff like that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so we just need to get to the games, because once we get to the games, we can whine and complain about the games themselves. In the meantime, we whine and complain about like dumb, innocuous things that happen in interviews. It's very annoying.
Oh, I agree.
Speaking of agreeing, I agree with everything that you've been doing. How good does it feel? I guess let me just put it this way. You're a couple years into this now. How comfortable are you with the progression that you've made at a young age, getting up to the AA level, producing the way that you have?
Yeah, I mean, that was my goal coming into pro ball. You know, I wanted to be in AA by the time I was right around here, or this was a little bit earlier than I thought.
Right.
I think just the work you put in, and this is your job. I mean, you got to take this serious, like it's every single day, in the off season and in season, because you have one goal in mind. You want to get to the major leagues and help your ball club win a World Series. So I think putting in the work is the least you can do, because everyone, in the Baltimore area is on you to be, this next thing to help your team win a World Series. So yeah, I'm very happy where I'm at, and I think it's just, every time you get moved up, it's like, all right, I'm getting a little closer. This is where I really have to work hard. So yeah, I'm excited.
I know right now it's been a bit of a slow start since you got up to Bowie, and I know that part of that is just making the adjustment to the next level. What have you learned so far in your taste of that level, and how comfortable are you that, like, okay, I'm figuring out the adjustments are coming. This is not – I know what I'm supposed to do as I make this jump.
Right, and I think every jump you make between the FCL to low A to high to double A to the major leagues, I think every jump you're going to have guys who struggle, and if it's not right away, it's going to be somewhere along the first few weeks, because when you get moved up, you're not familiar with the team, you're not familiar with the other teams you're facing, you're in a different atmosphere. But luckily for us, we built a good foundation with instructs and spring training, with being around everybody. But yeah, like, teams know more about you, and they're really going to expose your weakness. They're not going to give you anything that you want, really. But I think that's just all a part of it. And, if you didn't struggle at times, like you're going to struggle, like you're playing 100 games in a season, like you're going to do times where you struggle. I think the best players just make it out of those struggles a little bit faster than everybody else. And, I accept it sometimes, but yeah, I'm going to struggle. Gunnar Henderson is going to struggle at times. Jordan Westburg is going to struggle at times. Like, it's going to happen, and it has happened. So you got to just get out of the struggles as fast as you can, and I'm excited for, the rest of the season.
Adley Rutschman struggled for a week when he got to the major leagues. Now he might be the greatest player in the history of baseball. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That's the way it goes. Coby Mayo with us here on GCR. Coby, the pressure that comes, your name starts popping up. I mentioned earlier, MLB says you're the 7th prospect in the Orioles system. There are other places you've been ranked top 50 prospects in baseball by ESPN. Do you feel any of that? Like, where people really are, do you feel like maybe there's a little bit of a microscope, something like that? Does that affect you in any way?
Honestly, I don't feel it or I don't see it. I don't feel any pressure because I know that I just got to be my own player. Like, I got to be my own person when I get into the box, when I get into the field. At the end of the day, I expect a lot out of myself. And I know that I'm more hard on myself than other people will be on me because I expect a lot out of myself. So if people are harder on me, just know I'm even harder on myself. So, and it's not hard in a bad way. It's just, I know some things that I need to do. And if I'm not doing it, that I need to do. So, it's a little wake up call, affiliates, and you're struggling. It's like, oh, I got to figure this out. So yeah.
Internally, what are the things that you say? Hey, here's what I still think I need to get better at. I mean, obviously, look, the power was. Everybody says it's hard to hit home runs at Aberdeen. You were the guy that kind of disproved that theory this season. What are the things internally that when you judge yourself, you say, hey, this is where I still need to be working as I continue to progress?
I think it's just as a player in general. I mean, there's stuff defensively I need to clean up. There's stuff. Mechanically, just on the baseball field, I need to clean up. I'm getting exposed to a lot of soft stuff in the box, and I've been doing better with it. But they're still not going to give me, what I'm looking for because they see the numbers, they know what I do well with, and they know that what I don't do as well with. I think this season is my best off-speed hitting season in my life. I mean, I have maybe half hours off of off-speed pitches. But I'm still getting them because they don't want to throw me, what I'm looking for, which is a fastball.
Yep.
But I'm making those adjustments in the box because, that's what I'm going to get. Some days you had to take risks and look for else, and sometimes it will reward you and sometimes it won't. But that's baseball. That's why you play every single day.
Coby, you reference in the field. How important is it to you? Everybody talks about your bat, right? Like, we've known about your bat since the moment you were taken by the Orioles. But how important to you is it that you have a position, that you say, look, I am more than just a bat, and that I'm not just going to be the guy that gets dumped over to first base or DH when I get to the major leagues, that I'm going to play a position on the field at a high level, that when I get there, they want me there because I bring value to that as well.
Right, and I think a lot of people just look on the internet and will look at what people say and say that I'm not a third baseman or I don't move well or I don't do this well. But until you actually come to the field and watch me play, then I think that you can judge me off of that.
Mm-hmm.
People get caught up in all these reports that people say that have never watched me play, that just keep. This person says he doesn't play well, so I'm going to say that. But until you watch me play, I think I do bring value, whether it's at third or whether it's in the outfield. My primary position. But like you said, it could be first in the future, it could be right field in the future. But anywhere where I could play to help them win, be in the lineup is obviously my best attribute. But yeah, I would love to stick at third, but if it's not, then it is what it is.
I get it, right. Obviously, it's whatever it said. You're going to do whatever a team asks you to do. You want to be there. I completely understand what you're saying, but I think what you're saying makes all the sense in the world. That internally, it's a sense of pride. Like, I am a baseball player. I'm not just a bat. I'm a real, all-around baseball player, and I think that means a lot. It is a big week for the Bowie Baysox as they are at home. Tonight is back to the 80s night, plus happy hour before the game with live music, great tunes. And then they have an amazing giveaway this weekend, the Adley Rutschman Maryland flag hat tomorrow night. You're going to want that. Fireworks all weekend. They're celebrating the Washington Capitals on Saturday. Our buddy Mike Bordick's making an appearance on Sunday. Great events all throughout the weekend. Go to Baysox.com right now to get your tickets. Coby, when you showed up at Bowie, and I know that you dealt with the injury a little bit, you showed up with like maybe the only team in all of organized baseball that's hotter than the Baltimore Orioles. What was it like sort of being injected at this now at a higher level and a team that's winning and pursuing something? How much did that do to maybe get your juices flowing a little bit?
Yeah, it's awesome to win. No one loves winning more than we do. It's not just that we want to get better every single day, and we're all trying to get better, and we're winning because of it. Like, we want to get better, we're pushing each other, and we're winning because of it. You know, I started in Aberdeen, and we had the best record in all of minor leagues. We clinched the playoffs before any other team did. And then I get to Bowie, and we have the best start of the second half, and we have the best record. It's great. I think the group we have knows how to win because we all want to get better, and we all play so well together. So it's great being a part of winning teams, and that's what we're going to do in the future.
I was going to say, do you feel any of that from the top down? Like, does what's happening in Baltimore register with you guys? Does it matter to you guys? Like, hey, dude, there really is something truly special brewing here. We look like we might have the opportunity to all be a part. Like, if we keep grinding, we could be part of a World Series champion at some point when we get to Baltimore.
Oh yeah, we definitely know that, and we watch every game. Like, we have the TV in the clubhouse, and yesterday they played during the day. I think on Tuesday they played during Toronto, and we watch the games like all the time. Like, if they're on, it's on, and we're watching, and we're obviously rooting hard for them because this is our team, this is our future.
Yeah,
we could be a part of this team next year or in 2 years, like before you know it, because you just never know nowadays with just things working. You just see stuff around the league, and you're like, wow, like this is happening to this person. He's a contender. It's crazy. So we see it happening, and it gives us the little spark to keep going. Because they're winning after everyone doubting them, then why can't we go and win around this year?
No doubt, man. No doubt. I like the sounds of it. All right, I want to do two things before we let you go. Coby Mayo with us on GCR. One of the things that I've loved the most over the years is how guys in this system like to gas each other up. So give me somebody that maybe doesn't get as much love, that doesn't get as much hype, that you say, you guys should be paying attention to this dude too. You guys should be seeing what this guy is doing because this guy is a ball player. This guy's going to get there. He's special.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but Connor Norby,
he can mash, right?
He has more homers than I do.
Yeah.
People talk about my power, but the kid has more homers than I do, and he's about 6-7 inches smaller than me. He's a ball player. He's a great kid, great teammate. He wants to get better every day. He's always working on stuff. I think he just gets flown under the radar a little bit, but I'll let you know he's not going to beat me in the home runs.
And by the way, his power came more like as he got to the AA level, right?
You just figure some things out with the swing, and instead of those line outs he was getting, transferring those into home runs. So
no doubt.
Trying to gas him up a little bit. He's my roommate. So.
It's cool. I saw you guys were hanging out at Jimmy's not that long ago. I did see that picture, which is a cool thing. By the way, what's your go-to when you're at Jimmy's?
Oh, I wanted to have my parents. I got some sushi.
Dude.
But the sushi's really good, and then I got the seafood combination.
Okay.
And then we got the calamari. The calamari is amazing. Best calamari I've ever had.
Okay, so this is the problem because like they never really advertise their sushi because like I get it, like people associate sushi with like strip malls or whatever. Dude, when my wife and I will order sushi at Jimmy's, we'll finish the roll and I'll have dinner coming and I'll be like, I kind of would prefer to just have more sushi. Like it's that insanely good. The sushi rolls at Jimmy's.
Or I can just have the 1 pound crab cake.
Right? Yeah, you'd be okay. You'd be all right.
That crab cake is. It's nuts. That crab cake something else.
And then give me Monday. Give me like you get an off day or maybe Tuesday when you gotten back from a trip and you have a few hours. What do things look like? I know you said Connor's your roommate. What do you guys do? Are you hanging out? Are you playing golf? Like give me what life looks like for Coby when you get a couple minutes away from baseball.
I think a little bit earlier in the season we did go to DC. We did do stuff in DC. But honestly, usually it's wake up at 11:30, make some breakfast, and then just play some video games.
What are you playing?
NHL, Fall Guys. I used to be a big Fortnite guy, but the game's kind of fallen off a little bit.
Yeah, I get it.
I play everything. I play everything.
What is the longest? So maybe we have to go to the off season for this. What's the longest consecutive time you think you ever played Fortnite or Fall Guys or any that you looked over and you're like, oh my God, I sat down at 6 o'clock and it's 1 a.m. now. Like, what's the longest you think you've ever played consecutively?
Oh, 6 to 1 a.m. I do that all the time. Probably when I get back from a workout and it's like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and I play for probably like 3-4 hours, and then I take a little lunch dinner break, and then I go back and play till 1. So I mean, for a while, but I take some breaks in between. I should be a streamer for how much I play.
Right? Like, seriously, get some sponsors, man. What are you doing?
I know. I should. Put this out for me.
We will work on it. We will work on that. Who wants to sponsor Coby Mayo's Twitch? We're going to put this together so that you can get on that. At Coby Mayo X on Twitter. And then remind me where you at on Instagram.
Coby MVYO_.
Very good. Give him a follow there. Coby, really appreciate it, man. Have enjoyed our conversations with you. Really enjoying watching you mash the ball. We can't wait to see what's next. Thank you, as always, for taking the time for us. Look forward to doing it again, all right?
Appreciate you.
Coby Mayo, one of the top prospects in the Orioles system. Enjoy our conversations with him. Thank him for taking the time for us. Hey, coming up a little bit later on this afternoon, Stan the Fan Charles, Gary Stein, they're going to welcome Maryland football coach Mike Locksley to Facebook Live. That's coming up at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Stan the Fan, Gary Stein, previewing Maryland football season with Mike Locksley, 4 p.m. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports is how you can watch it. If you missed it earlier in the week, Stan and Ross Grimsley caught up with Ken Guthrie, who was the scout most responsible for Jackson Holiday, becoming the Orioles' #1 overall pick in the draft. So if you missed that, find it Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, PressBoxOnline.com/video, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. And again, Mike Locksley coming up today at 4 o'clock. All right, Tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you by our friends at Glory Days Grill. Boy, I keep thinking about the smoky thigh wings with that #2 sauce. #2 sauce. I don't know why they haven't started selling it in bottles yet. Like, I'm telling you, I took the vegetables that they give you with the wings, the celery and the carrots, and I just ran them through the leftover #2 sauce from my wings that was still on the plate. And, oh, God. Health? Who cares about health? I was eating vegetables. It counts. And #2 sauce is insane. You can still get the flash fried pork belly. It's called the opener. The flash fried pork belly with the Korean #2 sauce. You can still get the South Carolina barbecue chicken. Huge thumbs up. It's that South Carolina gold sauce, which is so good. The lobster roll with the grilled corn. Lobster and crab fries, all still available, but they won't be there forever. The summer seasonal menu, like the summer, will come to an end. And you will regret for the rest of your life missing out on the opportunity to try these things at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. GloryDaysGrill.com is the website. What you got? Need a microphone.
All right, tidbit. All right, so Framber Valdez, he threw his 20th consecutive quality start of the season yesterday. And so he is the second pitcher to do that in a league with the designated hitter. The only other one was Johan Santana in 2004 when he won the Cy Young.
How about that?
And of all the pitchers, there have been 7 pitchers to do this, 20 straight quality starts in a season. Every single one has won the Cy Young except for one Luis Tiant.
Louis Tiant. Okay, yes.
Louis Tiant.
Every
other one has won the Cy Young. I could ask you to name those. I don't think I will. I want to do an Orioles one.
Okay.
Do you think Framber Valdez wins the Cy Young this year? Any shot? Does he break the mold?
I mean, Verlander was like that's the problem is that like Verlander was so nuts.
I think I'm also leaning Verlander.
I think it's still Verlander.
Yeah. All right. So Valdez may become the second.
Let's see what the updated odds are. Let me pull up the old FanDuel Sportsy book here.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'll ask my question. So since obviously no Orioles pitcher. Well, yeah, no Orioles pitcher has thrown 20 straight quality starts. But I want to ask, since 1989, there have been 9 Orioles to throw at least 20 quality starts in a season. So can
9
you name
different Orioles? Or
yes,
there have been 9 seasons.
There have been more than 9 seasons, but 9. They've been done by 9 different men.
Orioles. Justin Verlander is still. Yeah, Framber Valdez doesn't even register.
Yeah, so
Framber Valdez is 100.
I mean, quality starts are kind of like
100. Yeah, 110 to 1 for Framber Valdez. He is the 8th choice.
I mean, I guess if he keeps throwing quality starts, but like
Verlander at minus 190. Dylan Cease is still in the conversation at plus 260, and then Shane McClanahan 9 to 1. Shohei Ohtani 32 to 1. Manoah 50 to 1. Gosman 70 to 1. Garrett Cole 110 to 1 with Framber Valdez.
Certainly,
and
Verlander's to lose.
Nestor Cortez also still 110 to 1, despite the fact that he's kind of fallen off. All right. So since when you said?
Since 1989.
Since 1989. So Jim Palmer is not on this list.
Yes, I kind of ruled them out.
So let's go Bedard.
Yes, Bedard is on there.
Let's go Messina.
Yep, Messina, 1997. He had 26.
Let's go Chris Tillman.
Yes, Tillman is on there a couple times. 2014, he had the most.
Let's try 21. Scott Erickson.
Yes, sir. Scott Erickson, also 1997, had 22 quality starts.
David Wells.
No David Wells.
How about Kevin Brown in his season here?
No Kevin Brown.
Not Orioles. Broadcaster Kevin Brown. Of course,
like,
the pitcher
what?
Kevin Brown. Yes, it's a different thing. All right. Boy, now it's tough. Was there somehow that Sidney Ponson season?
Sidney Ponson, no, he is not on here.
He got dealt that season. He had a really good season.
Oh, no, he had 19 in 1999.
I believe that was the year he was dealt to San Francisco.
Gets cut off.
Oh, boy. This does get really tough. I don't know. Rodrigo Lopez?
No, that's a good guess, but no Rodrigo Lopez.
All right, Miguel Gonzalez?
Yes, Miguel Gonzalez. Oh, no, he only had 19.
Jesus
I'm sorry.
Christ. Wei Yin Chen.
There you go. Wei Yin Chen. 20 on the dot in 2015. Not the only Chen on this list.
Bruce Chen had a...
Bruce Chen in 2005.
That is an
21 quality starts.
Upset. Okay. How many more? They said there's 3 more still?
I believe so, yeah.
God.
Yes, 3 more.
How about...
1989 pitcher.
1989.
Yeah, a guy from 1989.
Ben McDonald.
Not Ben McDonald.
No. 1989.
But
Dave Johnson didn't.
I know Ben McDonald is on the list, so I do have to give you that.
Okay.
But not the 1989.
Right, because that was
93. Ben McDonald had
23. That math was off. God. Who from the 1989? Malacky?
Nope, not Malacky.
God.
Spent 5 seasons with the Orioles.
I just got to remember who else was in the
short.
rotation.
Yeah, it was
Stop.
short major league career.
Stop. You're Ballard.
Yep.
Ballard.
Jeff Ballard. And then one more guy that you are missing from the pre-playoff Orioles.
Pre-playoff, like in the 90s or
from the late 08.
Jeremy Guthrie.
Jeremy Guthrie, yes.
I should have had that.
Jeremy Guthrie.
All right, very good. All right, Tubular, brought to you today by your local Toyota dealer and by buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Here's what's coming up, totally tubular-wise. As we mentioned, the Orioles play a matinee this afternoon against the Cubs. Adrian Sampson, Spencer Watkins, the pitching matchup, 3 o'clock on MASN. Then Nationals-Padres at 9:30 on MASN. MLB Network, Dodgers-Brewers at 2. Blue Jays-Yankees at 7. ESPN's got Little League World Series coverage in the afternoon. Then Bears-Seahawks tonight at 8. ESPN 2 has Little League World Series tonight at 7. Then Game 1 between the Washington Mystics and Seattle Storm at 10. ESPN U and NBA TV for Game 1 between the Dallas Wings and Connecticut Sun at 8. Golf Channel, Round 1 of the PGA's BMW Championship from over in Delaware at 3. Tennis Channel, ATP, WTP, Western and Southern Open, and throughout the day, bummer, our buddy Francis Tiafoe lost last night in 3 sets to Seb Korda.
So did Nadal.
Nadal did lose. Yes, he did.
That.
He's coming back from an injury. That's not that stunning.
He'll
be fine when he gets to New York. He'll be fine. WWE Network for NXT UK at 3. Access TV for Impact Wrestling at 8. Anything non-sports?
There's a new show on Peacock called The Undeclared War series premiering. It's like a Britain versus Russia cyber war. Simon Pegg's in it. Mark Rylance as well. Looks kind of interesting. Who knows?
Okay.
Then also the big thing is She-Hulk is premiering on
right.
Disney Plus.
That's right.
So check that out.
All right. Very good. Thanks today to Jim Callis. Thanks also to Coby Mayo, as well as to Joe Serpico from PressBox. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Stay on the Fan will be here tomorrow. We'll preview the Cardinals tomorrow, and
we should have Nick Vespi, I believe, from Norfolk.
Oh, Nick Vespi. Okay, very good. I like Nick Vespi. Good dude. All right, very good. Thanks to everybody at PressBox. Thanks to all of our great sponsors and partners. Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, the Costas Inn, Great 8's Memorabilia, FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Visit Howard County, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Thanks to Ryan at RexSpecs Ryan. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Thursday night. Go Birds. Duke sucks. Ohio State sucks too. If you're with us on audio, do nothing. If you're with us on video, give us a minute. Go back to where you started. Weekend at Bookies is coming up next.